When it comes to gigantic kaiju, surviving a monster rampage would be a difficult task, especially when said kaiju is the king of the monsters. We know how Godzilla can destroy his kaiju enemies, but what about us puny humans? Here are 10 ways that Godzilla can kill you. In this list, we will count down what we think are the worst ways to die from a Godzilla attack. Starting with the most obvious, the monster simply walking around you. Whether it's a tidal wave sweeping you away, a hunk of debris from a building falling on you, or a bus being flung 200 yards just to turn you into red mist when it strikes you. The mere presence of a being so massive as Godzilla would be extremely dangerous. Have you ever thought about what would happen to your body if Godzilla was to take one gigantic step on top of you? If you were to get stomped on by Godzilla's gigantic feet, your body would be obliterated, and it would be hard to tell your mangled meat from the concrete. You wouldn't feel a darn thing, but the last moments of you seeing this foot come crashing down towards you would be a terrifying feeling that we will hopefully never be able to comprehend. Let's say you manage to survive this monster's feet as he passes you by. Right as you turn to flee in the opposite direction, the Gman flings his tail around, and without even knowing you were there, his submarine-sized tail collides with you. Your body would bust like when a baseball bat strikes an apple, and what's left of you would be flung at the nearest onlookers and buildings. If his body alone didn't kill you, then his atomic breath and its after effects would finish the job. I'll let this 1950s government broadcast explain the rest.
So, what would it take to survive Godzilla's atomic breath? What can you do? Sadly, there's not much you can do. If you're unfortunate enough to be in the direction of Godzilla's concentrated atomic breath, well, kiss your behinds goodbye and pray to our Lord for forgiveness. Because you'll be incinerated, and hiding in a fridge will not help you. For those within 5 miles of Godzilla's attack, stay indoors and wait for the radiation to die down until you can be rescued by the authorities. For those outside, you may experience nuclear fallout. Fallout being the residual radioactive material that was propelled into the upper atmosphere following a nuclear disaster. These particles can be carried off by the wind, bringing harmful radiation to neighboring civilizations. Extreme exposure to fallout can mutate your DNA, causing cancer cells to grow, teeth to fall out, damage your intestinal tract lining, causing nausea, bloody vomiting, and diarrhea. The radiation will begin to destroy the cells in your body, preventing any hope of recovery, so always keep your trusty lead gas mask nearby. If fallout begins to rain down, stay indoors. This will increase your chance at survival, as standard concrete houses can prevent their radiation from affecting you. If you have an underground basement, hide there, as this should expose you to only 1/200th of the amount of fallout radiation outside. If the giant lizard attacks, remember, duck and cover.
Duck and cover.
It's said that drowning is a horrible way to go, and if you just so happen to be a fisherman, Navy member, or just some folks wanting to have a good time out at sea, coming in contact with Godzilla would be suffocating, literally. If you manage to survive the initial attack, the likelihood of you surviving being dragged down with the monster into the deep depths of the ocean is not very high. Going down with your ship, being trapped and terrified of your impending doom until the waters swallowed you and took away your air. Or you could be sucked out of one of the ship's breached walls, and if you were already too deep, your body would slowly collapse under the pressure. You would lose consciousness and drown in less than a minute, to be left aimlessly floating in the water. Picture this. You're standing around, trying to make sense of seeing Godzilla somehow carried off into the sky by a 3-headed winged dragon. And then a minute or so later, as you attempt to walk away, you look up just in time to see a 100,000-ton animal fall directly on top of you. The force of the impact would turn all that is your body into vapor, and there would be no sign of you. In a kaiju battle, the chances of one of them being pushed, thrown, shoved, or dropped on you is pretty high, so get the hell out of there and don't try to get that ultimate selfie. Sure, his roar is iconic and sounds badass, but you wouldn't want to be too close to the G-Man's mouth when he lets out his triumphant roar. Depending on how close you were to him, your body would go through different levels of distress until you ultimately died. At first, your eardrums would rupture. The sheer amount of pain here would drop you to your knees. Then if the roar continued, your insides would literally be vibrated so intensely that they would start to come undone. You would bleed internally and there would be a chance that you would suffer from a lung embolism, which is where your arteries and your lungs get clogged by blood. You would lose your breath and have insane chest pain, and then you would just die. Sound is deadly. Humans are simple creatures. We see or hear something that can kill us, we run in the other direction. A Godzilla attack in a city would send hordes of people running away in pure chaos. When you have thousands or even hundreds of people running for their lives in a panic, all it takes is for one of them to lose their footing and fall to the floor. Being trampled to death in a human stampede is real. This sad fate happens to people every year, and in a kaiju attack, dozens would die, not by Godzilla, but by their fellow humans running over them. Each foot that strikes your body as you lay on the ground takes your breath away and causes damage. If you don't die from suffocating, then the repeated bashing of shoes to your vital areas like your chest and head would slowly lead to your death. So in a Godzilla attack, try to stay away from crowds. So this one's simple. It could be that Godzilla's overloading and his burning state is going to cause the planet to implode on itself, or that the G-Man was able to terraform the planet to fit his needs, leaving the rest of life on the planet to perish. Destroying the planet as we know it would be the end of us all. This is something hard to imagine, but a possibility nonetheless when we're talking about Godzilla. What is one way you could see the world ending if the G-Man was real? Leave your answers in the comment section below. Number 3. Collateral Damage. Ultimately, if Godzilla was to attack, a large portion of fatalities would come from not the beast himself, but from the attempts at stopping his rampage. Stray bullets would strike unlucky civilians as they attempted to flee, missiles would blow up entire blocks full of people, and if there was ever a nuke unleashed, everyone in the vicinity would be vaporized. Collateral deaths happen all the time in war, sadly, and a kaiju attack would be no different. Wrong place, wrong time. Number 2. Starvation and lack of resources. If Godzilla only attacked once, this wouldn't be a problem. But if he continued his war with mankind, or if he was able to reproduce and fill the planet with offspring that would grow to be like himself, we would all suffer. In the case of Godzilla 1998, an infestation of these monsters would quickly use up the planet's fish supply in a couple of decades. And the rest of our food infrastructure would be hard-pressed to provide enough for everyone. If you came from a culture that lives primarily off of fish that are caught out at sea, you might just end up starving as the Gojira consume all the fish around you. If the Godzilla rampage went on for a century, the human population would be hit hard over time. And the deaths caused by this would be in the hundreds of millions, if not more. Number 1. Eaten alive by babies. Outside of that last one there, most of the ways to die till this point are more or less painless or at the very least quick. This last way is neither. We all have a fear of being eaten alive, engraved into our natural instincts from a time when our ancestors ran for their lives from all sorts of deadly animals that wanted to eat our butts. Godzilla himself could eat you, but you would have to fall in his mouth and down his throat randomly because you're just too damn small for him to waste his time on eating you. But his infants, well, that's entirely different. Most takes on Godzilla don't have any young or only have one infant at a time, and they usually don't need to eat meat. In the case of the baby Zillas and the Frenchmen who were in their nest, this has got to be one of the worst ways to go from a Godzilla attack. Imagine the gummy mouths of infants whose teeth are not fully developed crunching into you. Their little teeth are not large enough to end you quickly. Instead, you feel the crunching pain of every bite as they eat you alive. Their giant feet would stomp you and keep you in place. Their arms would hold you still if you managed to get up and try to run. You would hear your bones break and your flesh ripped. This would continue on until you simply pass out due to all the pain and die soon after. May just be the worst way to go in a Godzilla attack, but what do you think? Residents, I hope you enjoyed this list video of 10 ways that you could die if Godzilla was real. If you think we missed any clever ways of dying, make sure to comment down below what you think would be an interesting way to go if the big G-Man was to come around. If you like this video, leave us a like, share the video around with all your friends. I thank you all for your time today. It means a bunch, and I will see you in the next one.